MG, do you know why this coffee filed a police record? Because it got mugged. I apologize, everyone. I wish there was a way that I can customize my digital tool in a way that it could generate at least more funny jokes. Did you generate this joke using ChatGPT? Well, yeah. By the way, talking about customization, can I create my own customized ChatGPT? Is it possible? Yeah, and you must. You can customize your ChatGPT in a way that it can chat or talk in a desired specific way that you want, or answer based on a specific data sources that you desire. So let's create a chatbot similar to ChatGPT but customized in a way that it can talk in your desired way. Then MG, wait, here's another one. How do you catch a squirrel? Climb a tree and act like a nut. Stop it. Let's go. Hello everyone, this is MG and I hope you're all doing and feeling great. Welcome to another video. Well, I'm pretty sure that almost all of you have tried to log into ChatGPT, create your account there and start chatting with ChatGPT and see the history of your chats. But how about this? Can we customize ChatGPT in a way that we can still have that sort of similar web app, but instead of just having prompt in a way to customize our interaction, how we can customize designing ChatGPT by itself? I mean, not the model, we can still keep the model, but how we can make a wrapper application that we can first control how our employees or our users are interacting with the model, how they're prompting, or we can define how ChatGPT should answer specific questions of myself, my teammates, or all employees of the company. For example, if a user asks a specific question in that web application, do not immediately generate the answer. First, ask a couple of questions. For example, ask the employee, what is your name? What is your role in the company? And then start answer potential questions about the organization, right? So in this video, we're gonna check it out that how we can use Azure OpenAI plus Azure Web App to create a web app similar to ChatGPT that we can start to log in, chat with ChatGPT, but in a way that we can customize it on the backend side, that how we are answering the questions using ChatGPT. Let's say answer based on this specific behavior, a specific identity, or based on a specific data sources that you define. So let's check it out at how we can create our own customized web application similar to ChatGPT. Let's check it out. Before we start, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will get notified for the next video. Thank you. All right, let's get into the cool part. So I wanted to quickly draft, using whiteboard actually, to draft the flow of what we are going to create in this video, okay? So what we're gonna do is we are going to develop a web application similar to ChatGPT web app that you have seen on when you log into your OpenAI account, when you log into ChatGPT. There's a place that you can start immediately chatting. You have the history of your sessions, and then you have the result iteratively get back to you using GPT 3.5 or GPT-4. So can we develop a similar web app but in a more simple way using Azure Web App and then start chatting with OpenAI models? You might question, why do I need to do that? What is the proposed value of creating my sort of own web app that acts like ChatGPT web application? But the reason is here. What I'm gonna do, instead of having the general ChatGPT web app that you can sort of ask anything, let's say I want to deploy a solution that they still use ChatGPT, but I want to make sure it answers in a way that I request. For example, I do have Azure OpenAI for my company, and I want to make sure that I do monitor the input and outputs coming into these models and coming out of these models, or ChatGPT model as an example here, and monitor what my employees are asking, right? So I need to sort of develop a customized solution. Not only that, I want to make sure before ChatGPT answer any questions of my employee, Let's first ask, what is that employee name? So the ChatGPT should start, sure, happy to help you, but what is your name and what is your role in the company? As an example, this is actually an example I use for this video. So you create an application with a customized prompt that you define how you want to answer your questions or someone's questions or your employee question. Not only that, you can specify in the prompt here, hey ChatGPT, answer my employees' questions based on, for example, this desired trait or this desired identity or this desired data sources. Remember, we had a video about how to chat with your own data? It can be here in this place too. So how we can do that, how we can create a web application? Well, here I'm using a open source Python library called Streamlit, which is an open source library for helping you developing pretty simple web application, mainly for data science and machine learning. But if you don't want to deal with the complexities of developing app and you're a Python guy like myself, this is a good way to start. It can quickly launch a web application for you that you can have a place to chat, a Streamlit chat, which we're gonna use it to make it similar to ChatGPT, that you can have your history of the chats there, you can have login there, you can have sidebar, checkbox, all those main functionalities of a web app, you can have it here. And then this web application, which we're gonna develop with Python, gonna call Azure OpenAI here. So I have Azure OpenAI, I have my key, I have GPT 3.5 model deployed there. I don't have GPT-4 yet, you might have it there. So in this Streamlit app, I will receive user's question. I will customize the user question in a prompt that I want. Here's the proposed value, which you don't have it in the current public ChatGPT web app that you have all access to that. So I can add this customization part, call OpenAI model like GPT 3.5, answer the user question, and show it back to the end user. But I don't want to run it on my local machine because I want to onboard people using this web application. So I have to host it on a cloud, on Azure Web App, that the rest of my team I can give them the link. Hey, here's the Azure Web App. Use this instead of openai.com and then log into ChatGPT. Then ask your question there, right? So in order to do so, I have to create a container image out of my Streamlit app with all the functionalities that this part does. Then push it to container registry, and you will see that I'm gonna create an Azure container registry. Why? Because when I create a complete package out of this solution, which we call a container image, I have to host this somewhere, so Azure Web App can take it from there and then deploy this as an Azure Web App that I can share with other people to use it with the URL. And of course, when you create an Azure Web App here, you should also attach an app plan to it. So what is a service app plan? It is all about how heavy the server should be to host your Azure Web App. What is the memory size? What's the amount of cores? So which we don't need a heavy server plan for my Azure Web Application. This is a simple web application. Okay, so what I have provided for you, I started to create a repository out of this demo, and I added the link of this repository. I quickly drafted in the Discord channel, so check that out so you can clone what I am doing here and replicate it on your site too. You will see the video tutorial link, which is the current video that I'm recording, and because I haven't posted the video yet, there's nothing here, but as soon as I finish recording and I post this video, I will add the link here as well. So in order to do so, on your machine that you're gonna clone this GitHub repository, first you just say git clone to make sure you can, or just simply download this repository. Make sure you have both Docker and Azure CLI installed, because you're gonna create a container image in your machine using Docker that you have installed, and then push it to Azure Container Registry. And we know the reason, because we want to have the image get pulled from there to deploy the application in Azure Web App. Now, in number 2, here are the steps that you need to run. First of all, you need to create a Docker build. And by the way, make sure when you run these command lines one by one, your working directory in the terminal is the place that you have downloaded this. Why? Because here you can see that I'm saying, hey Docker, build a container image for me, and here choose any name you want, whatever. That's why I had it as a parameter here. So Docker will take a look in your current directory to see if you have a Docker file or not to build it. That's why in my current working directory, when you download this, there's a Docker file. So let's take a look. So this Docker file just simply say that for hosting this solution, I need a Python 3.9 version. And you will see that I have a requirement.txt file that include all the pip packages you need to install in that Azure web app to be able to run my Streamlit application, which is my customized ChatGPT. So if I go back, there you go. Here's the requirement text that I'm referring to inside my Docker file. There you go. You can see, of course, we need a Streamlit to run a Streamlit, and a Streamlit chat is a function of a Streamlit that I can chat in that web app. And of course, OpenAI, you need to make sure you have it installed because we are using OpenAI. So getting back to my Docker file, oops, there you go. And then here at this point, I'm going to copy in case your app course code is somewhere else. I'm copying that to the working directory to make sure I will push them all as a container image to push it to container registry. And you know that for connecting calling OpenAI models, you need to have the base URL and the key. You can just simply grab these two from Azure OpenAI resource you have created in your Azure portal. That's it. And lastly, for running any Streamlit application, you have to say, hey Streamlit, run application, which is app.py. I have this .py in my repo I'm going to show you. But here's the tricky part. Make sure you specify the same port numbers and address, because the port number that usually Streamlit run is different than the port number that Azure Web App keep it open for running your application. That's why we need to do a little bit of port forwarding, which I'm going to show you quickly how, but keep the same thing. So coming back to custom ChatGPT repo, I told you there's an app file. This is exactly my Streamlit application. So let's open that and let's go quickly through the code. Here you can just simply see that these are the stuff I'm importing. You have to make sure that your OpenAI key and base URL is added as a parameter in your environment. That's why when I go back to the Docker file, you'll see that, one second, there you go. I am specifying this environment variable because my Streamlit app gonna use and call them. So it is simple, just a title for having that overall in the web page. When we run our web app, you will see that it's gonna be the title of our application. Then for calling Azure OpenAI, here are the parameters and values that I need to have in place. That's why you'll see that I'm getting these base URL and key from environment, because it is not secure to add these secrets like this. You can, but obviously if anyone open the code, they will see your values here. Then here, what I'm gonna do, I am initiating the state of my chat and application. For example, if there is no chat generated, that means user hasn't asked any question yet. So the first thing they're gonna tell to ChatGPT that you are an assistant. Wait, the question is gonna be coming and you need to answer. If there's nothing generated, if there's nothing in the history of the chat, so keep that empty. And at the same time, that web app gonna calculate the amount of tokens you have been using to give you how much of cost you have paid so far for these questions and answers, and is calculating the cost based on the current rate of Azure OpenAI. I'm looking for the cost calculation. There you go. But these might get changed, so always make sure you check out the pricing in OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. And by the way, I'm using Azure OpenAI, but you can use even OpenAI too if you don't have OpenAI on Azure as well. So the same solution gonna work. And then at the same time in the web app, I'm gonna create a sidebar to let the user decide if they're gonna use GPT 3.5 or GPT-4 for answering that question. That's why we have this logic here. And then we're gonna add a button called clear. So if user click on that, all the chat history gonna get deleted, so we can start from scratch. And here is the tricky part and the main or juice of this solution. Here I'm receiving the user question, but instead of directly shipping the user question to OpenAI, first I'm gonna have my customized prompt to say to ChatGPT that, hey, you are an assistant for our company, and here's the employee question. You need to answer employee question. Sorry for my typo, you can just fix it. But make sure you ask employee name and role title before you answer any question. And here's the chat history included, the last question of the user. So I'm giving the user question here coming from the function input. But before just saying that, hey, answer this question, I'm gonna give some context to OpenAI model. Here you can say that you are my company assistant, answer my employee questions based on these data sources that you have gathered from, let's say, cognitive search. Again, check out the chat with your data video. I have specifically explained that how you can connect your data to ChatGPT. But, or you can say, whatever, answer my employee question in a very formal way. Or if user asks any questions about topics X, Y, and Z, these are sensitive topics. Do not answer and guide the user to contact a person that I'm gonna tell you. And much more complex prompt flows you can specify here. This is just a very simple example to show you the art of possibility. This is what you cannot have in current public chat GPT, but you're creating your own web app chat GPT, but it's customized in a way that you want to answer your question. And that's it. It will then retrieve the response back. So here what I'm going to do, I'm just simply visualizing that, shipping back to the web app so the user can see the answers of the questions. Then I append this answer to the history of the chat, because I have to keep the history of the chat, and each time a user asks a new question, I have to give all the chat history to the model as well, so the model will know what is the context, what the employee has been asking so far, and what is the latest question I need to answer. That's it. So getting back to the repo, we talked about the fact that we have a Docker file that called this app Python code, which is my Streamlit app. But before it, there are some pip packages I need to install here. And the last thing that we haven't discussed is Docker Compose, which is a file that we needed when we deploy our Azure Web App. So when we create the Azure Web App, we have to tell to Azure Web App that, hey, in order to implement my application, I have wrapped my application as a container image, and the container image is inside this Azure Container Registry. So when you create your container registry, which I'm going to show you how, you need to replace that with the name of your container registry. And of course, when you create a container image out of your application, you have a name for that too. So replace it there, which I'm going to show you again how you will create the image name here. Sorry, the container image. And then remember, there were some variables of OpenAI base and key we have to add here. This is the place you need to add them. And here's the port forwarding. I told you that why you need to do that, and keep the same numbers again. Okay, getting back to the repo, we talked about all the files in the repository, and what you need to do now, you need to start building container image using this Docker file. So let me open up my VS Code, the place that I implemented that. There you go. Here I'm running Docker build, building the Docker image, and here's the name of my container image that I've decided. By the way, you have to make sure that you are in the directory that you have downloaded the repo that I showed you, okay? So after executing this, I already did to save the time. I'm not going to do it again. You open your Docker desktop that you have installed, which is a prerequisite for this repo. You'll see that under images, you have your image created here. I don't want to use it here because I want to use it on cloud. I don't want to run this web app on my local machine, right? I want to let other people use it. So this just going to confirm that we have successfully created our container image. Now, getting back to my whiteboard, I am here. I create a container image out of that app.py that I told you that we have customized prompts. So it's going to ask the user name and the role in the company before answering question, and it call OpenAI to answer question. But now I want to push this container image that I created to Azure Container Registry. Let's do this. So if I get back to the repo, in order to do so, of course, you need to first log into Azure. You need to run AZ login in your terminal. Here I'm gonna say AZ login. I don't want to do that because I already done. It's gonna pop up a window for you that you need to add your user and password to log into your Azure account. Again, you have to make sure you have installed Azure CLI. That's why I added here. That's a prerequisite. Install it, then you should be fine to run AZ login. Then let's create a resource group to host all these services, our demo stuff. That's why give a name for your resource group, whatever you want. I deployed in East US. Make sure if you want to use Azure OpenAI, Azure OpenAI is not available as of now in all regions. So that's very important. Then I want to create an Azure Container Registry, ACR. There in the resource group I created on the top. Let's say if it's called MG, here should be MG2. That's my resource group name. And then give it a name for your Azure Container Registry.
And for SQL I use basic, which should be enough. When I ran this is what happened. There you go. I have my resource group created. Then I have my container registry. This is the name I specified. Yours gonna be different, but I have my container registry here. Let's take a look. Okay, let's keep it as here. Getting back to the repo. Then I said that I want to log into that Azure Container Registry. Why? Because I want to push an image that I created with my laptop to this container registry. That's why I say log into that container registry that I specified here or created here in this line. Then I'm gonna tag this with the name that I specify. And of course, when you created the Docker here, you choose a name for that, right? So use the same name here. And then I push that Docker image from a local machine to Azure Container Registry. That's why when I ran these last two command lines again in my terminal here under the current directory that you have downloaded this repo, if I go back to my Azure Container Registry, if I click on images, let's see if we have it here. I think it's on the repositories. There you go. Yep, you'll see that the custom ChatGPT container image that we created in my local machine. There you go. And that was the name I specified when I tagged this Docker and pushed that to the repo. This is my container image name. The same name is appeared here. And also I said that this is the container image name. Go and store it inside this Azure Container Registry name. This is my Azure Container Registry name. That's it. Now I can have my Azure web app to get this image and host my Streamlit.py, which is my customized ChatGPT. But before I do so, I mentioned that when you want to create, okay, let's see where we are. First of all, getting back to the whiteboard. Now we did this part, we did this part, this is the last part. Before I go ahead and create the Azure web app, make sure you have an app plan created. How? Just in your portal, search app service plan, and that's it. Here are a list of web plans that I've created, but just simply need to click on create. After you click on create, it's gonna just ask you, give me the subscription name and resource group you wanna host this app service. Is it a Linux machine that you wanna run your Azure web app, or Windows? Region, and here is the place that you can specify how heavy your server would like to be. I think I went ahead with this one, 16 gigabytes for CPU, which is more than enough. And that's it. Just click on create. Make sure when you choose a name, you keep that name, right? Why? Because when you come back to the repo and when you create your app plan, which I just show you how, you have to use that name you specified when you're creating app plan here. The rest you know the resource group name you created already on the top, you know the app plan name now because you just created, and of course you need to specify a web app name. Why? Because this command line, which is the last one, is creating your web app. So give it a name and the rest is all good. You don't need to change anything. So what's gonna happen when you run this last command line? This gonna create your Azure web app and connect it to the app line that you created. So let me show you in the portal. There you go. You'll see that my web app has been created, and when it is running successfully, here it will give you a link in front of default domain. Click on that link, it should run your customized ChatGPT, and there you go. So of course the UI is not similar to ChatGPT UI, but this is an example to start. You can further make this Streamlit application even more complicated with more stuff. You can add Azure Active Directory login to let your employees authenticate to this Azure web app before they start using it. But here, let's say I want to say hi. Let's say I'm in my company right now, I'm employee, and I want to know how can I open support ticket. Okay, again, it can be also connected to your own data sources as well to answer, but here I just want to see if our customized prompt is working right now. Send. So it said, hey, before I assist you, may I know your name and role title in the company? This is exactly what we ask in our customized prompt, that before answering my employee's question, make sure you know that person, to make sure we are answering properly based on the user role. This is something you don't have in ChatGPT right now. But with your customized one, you can get it. And you're still using the same model that ChatGPT uses, which is GPT 3.5. Or if you have access now, you can also go with GPT-4. And you will see that he's giving me the total cost based on the token that I've used for generating this answer. And if I want to click on clear conversation, now your history is gone and you're back with the place that you can ask your very first question. All right. Again, what we did, getting back to our whiteboard to wrap up, we created this web app UI with using Streamlit, which is open source Python library, with our customized prompt. This is the proposed value of this solution. To call OpenAI models like ChatGPT model, which is GPT 3.5, that on the backend of ChatGPT. ChatGPT by itself is not a model. It's an application name that uses GPT 3.5, okay? And then we wrap it over a container image to make it as a package and host it in an Azure Container Registry. We push the image there, and then Azure Web App was able to get that image to host our web app over an app plan or a server that we specified. That's all. Let me know what other questions, ideas, or comments you might have in the comment section of this video, which I do care and read and respect all of them. Hope you enjoyed this video and you found it fruitful. That's all.
Ignore them. Don't listen to other people. Live a life that is empowered to you. Let it go. Don't ruin a good day with thinking about a bad yesterday. Stay calm. It's okay with not having everything figured out. Know it that with time, you'll get there. Be patient. Time will heal everything. Change the plan. If the plan doesn't work, change it, but not the goal. Be aware that you're the only one responsible for your happiness. And lastly, smile. Life is short. Enjoy it. Dream big, my friends. Believe in yourself and take action. Next video, take care.